The room was cold. The air was sterile. The smell of antiseptic usually masked everything else. But not today. Today, there was a different smell. A heavy, sweet, rotting scent that defied the ventilation system. Dr. Elias Thorne stood over the steel table. He adjusted his mask. He had performed over 3,000 autopsies. He thought he had seen everything. He had seen car crash victims. He had seen gunshot wounds. He had seen the ravages of rare diseases. But the body lying before him was different. It was swollen, distended. It looked less like a human and more like a pressurized vessel. Thorne picked up his scalpel. He prepared to make the standard Y incision. He touched the blade to the chest. He expected the skin to part easily. Instead, there was a sound, a hiss, then a violent pop. Blood and fluid sprayed across the room. The chest cavity did not just open. It ruptured. It was a biological detonation. This is the story of a routine procedure turned into a nightmare. This is the medical mystery of the body that exploded. Arthur Vance was a 44-year-old construction worker. He was strong. He was healthy. He had no history of chronic illness. His death was sudden. He had collapsed on a job site on a Thursday afternoon. His coworkers thought it was heat stroke. It was a hot July day. They dragged him to the shade. They gave him water. But Arthur didn't wake up. By the time the paramedics arrived, his pulse was thready. His skin was pale. He died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. The initial cause of death was listed as cardiac arrest. It seemed standard, a tragic but natural event. The body was transported to the county morgue. It arrived at 6 p.m. The paperwork was filed. Arthur was placed in drawer number 42. The refrigeration unit was set to the standard 38 degrees Fahrenheit. This temperature is crucial. It slows down decomposition. It keeps the bacteria inside us from taking over. Usually, a body can stay in this state for days without significant change. But Arthur's body was not following the rules. Inside his tissues, a microscopic war had already begun. A war that the cold could not stop. Dr. Thorne arrived the next morning at 8 a.m. He was scheduled to perform the autopsy to rule out foul play or industrial accidents. He walked into the prep room. The first thing he noticed was the drawer. Drawer 42 was not flush with the wall. It was pushed out slightly, as if something inside was shoving against the steel latch. Thorne frowned. He grabbed the handle. It was tight. The mechanism was jammed. He had to use his shoulder to leverage it open. When the drawer finally slid out, Thorne gasped. The body of Arthur Vance had transformed overnight. He was unrecognizable. His face was swollen to twice its normal size. His eyes were bulging from their sockets. His tongue protruded from his mouth, dark and swollen. His torso was massive. The skin was pulled tight like a drum. It was shiny. It was a dark, purple-green color. The buttons on his shirt had popped off. The zipper on his jeans had burst. Thorne had seen decomposition before. He knew what a floater looked like after weeks in a river. But this man had died less than 24 hours ago. He had been in a refrigerator. This level of bloating usually took weeks to achieve. It was medically impossible for a body to decay this fast in a controlled environment. Thorne called his assistant, Sarah. She took one look and stepped back. The smell was overwhelming now. It wasn't just rot. It was a sharp chemical stench, like rotten eggs mixed with sweet fruit. They moved the body to the main table. It was difficult. The limbs were stiff, but not from rigor mortis. They were stiff from pressure. The skin felt strange. When Thorne pressed a finger against the arm, he felt a crackling sensation. It felt like bubble wrap popping under the skin. Pathologists call this crepitus. It means there is gas trapped in the subcutaneous tissue. Gas bubbles were forming under the skin. Thousands of them. Thorne began the external examination. He noted the massive abdominal distension. The belly looked hard and round. He noted the discoloration. This is called marbling. The veins turn black and become visible through the skin. It looks like a road map of death. Usually, this takes days to appear. On Arthur, it was vivid and complete. Thorne was confused. Was the refrigeration broken? He checked the logs. The temperature had held steady at 38 degrees. The problem was not the fridge. The problem was the body. Thorne decided to proceed. He needed to know what killed this man, and he needed to know why he was turning into a biological time bomb. He put on a face shield. He added an extra layer of protective gear. He had a bad feeling. He picked up the scalpel. He positioned himself for the incision. He warned Sarah to stand back. He applied pressure to the chest. That was the moment of the explosion. It wasn't a fireball. It was a pneumatic rupture. The internal pressure inside the chest cavity had built up to dangerous levels. When the skin was compromised, the gas sought the path of least resistance. It blasted outward. It carried with it bodily fluids. It carried liquefied tissue. It sprayed the ceiling. It sprayed the walls. Dr. Thorne was covered. The sound was a wet, heavy thud followed by a long hiss as the gas continued to escape. The room fell silent. Thorne stood frozen. He was shaking. This was a biohazard nightmare. If this man had a contagious disease, everyone in the room was now exposed. They immediately initiated containment protocols. They showered. They changed scrubs. They doused the room in bleach. But they still had to finish the job. They had to find the source of the gas. When they returned to the body, the chest cavity was open. The organs were visible, but they didn't look like organs. The liver was a foamy, gray mass. The spleen was liquefied. The heart was flabby and filled with gas bubbles. It looked like Swiss cheese. Every organ was riddled with tiny pockets of air. The smell was now unbearable. Thorne took samples. He took fluid from the chest. He took tissue from the liver. He sent them to the lab stat. He marked them as high priority. He suspected he knew the culprit. He had read about it in textbooks, but he had never seen it in person. Not like this. The results came back 2 hours later. The culprit was a bacteria, a specific, nasty organism called Clostridium perfringens. This bacteria is famous for one thing. Gas gangrene. It is an anaerobic bacteria. That means it hates oxygen. It thrives in places where there is no air. When it infects a living host, it releases toxins. These toxins kill the tissue. The dead tissue becomes food for the bacteria. As the bacteria eat, they produce gas. Methane, nitrogen, hydrogen sulfide. This gas expands. It crushes blood vessels. It kills more tissue. It creates a vicious cycle of death and expansion. But Arthur didn't have gangrene on his leg. He didn't have an open wound, or so they thought. Thorne looked closer at the medical history. He looked closer at the body. He found a tiny puncture wound on Arthur's lower back. It was small, insignificant. It looked like a splinter or a bug bite. Clostridium perfringens lives in the soil. It is everywhere. The nail had injected the bacteria deep into his muscle tissue, deep enough to bypass the oxygen-rich skin. The bacteria found a home in the deep muscle of his back. It began to multiply. It was silent at first. Arthur felt some pain. He thought he had pulled a muscle. He took some ibuprofen. He went to work. But inside, the bacteria were doubling every 20 minutes. They were producing gas. They were producing toxins. When Arthur collapsed, it wasn't heat stroke. It was septic shock. The toxins had entered his bloodstream. They shut down his heart. He died within minutes. But the death of the host did not stop the bacteria. In fact, it helped them. When Arthur died, his blood stopped circulating. Oxygen stopped flowing. The entire body became an anaerobic environment, a paradise for Clostridium. The refrigeration didn't stop them. These bacteria are resilient. They continued to feed on his dead tissue. They fermented the sugars in his body. They produced massive amounts of gas. Usually, bacteria in the gut produce gas after death. That causes bloating. But this was different. The bacteria were everywhere. They were in his muscles. They were in his blood. They were in his organs. They turned his entire body into a gas factory. The pressure built up inside the sealed container of his skin. The skin stretched. The muscles tore. The pressure rose higher and higher, until Dr. Thorne made that first cut. The exploding body is a rare phenomenon in modern pathology. It usually happens in cases of extreme neglect, or in bodies found days after death in hot environments. For it to happen in a morgue cooler is incredibly rare. It requires a perfect storm, a massive systemic infection, a bacteria that produces gas rapidly, and a sealed body that traps it all inside. The danger of this event is real. The spray from a body is highly infectious. If Dr. Thorne had cut his hand during the explosion, He could have developed gas gangrene himself. The bacteria could have entered his bloodstream. It could have killed him in hours. The case of Arthur Vance changed the protocols in that morgue. Now, when a body comes in swollen, they take x-rays first. They look for the telltale gas pockets in the tissue. If they see the Swiss cheese pattern in the muscles, they don't just cut. They vent. They use a needle to release the gas slowly. Contained and safe. They treat the body like a defusing bomb, because that is what it is. This case highlights a terrifying biological reality. Our bodies are vessels. We carry billions of bacteria with us every day. Most are helpful. Some are harmless. But a few are waiting for the defenses to drop, waiting for the oxygen to run out. Clostridium perfringens is one of nature's recyclers. Its job is to break down dead organic matter. It is efficient. It is fast. It is relentless. In the case of Arthur Vance, it was just doing its job. It was just doing it too well, too fast. The mystery of the exploding body was solved. It wasn't supernatural. It wasn't a chemical weapon. It was biology unchecked. It was the microscopic world asserting its dominance over the macroscopic one. It serves as a grim reminder to every pathologist. The patient on the table may be dead, but the things living inside him might still be very much alive. And they might be dangerous. When you look at a body, you see a still object. Science sees a complex ecosystem. When the balance tips, that ecosystem can become volatile. The pressure builds, the gas expands, and sometimes the vessel cannot hold. The line between a silent corpse and a biological hazard is thinner than a scalpel blade. And sometimes, all it takes is one small cut to unleash the pressure of 1,000 invisible killers.